Hey, I'm Richard Miller with Goldie May, and this is the live genealogy research series. Watch as James Tanner and I, along with invited guests, work through a genealogy problem with no script and no agenda. Maybe you'll learn from the big strategy, maybe you'll learn from the small features and the tools, or maybe you'll just see a better way to do it and you can leave a comment so we can all learn. I hope you find this really helpful. Now, here is the research. All right, welcome to episode 7. I'm here with James Tanner, and today we're going to let James Tanner drive. He's going to share his screen, and he's got a case to present to us. Thanks, James. I'll let you take it away.
Okay, let's get into this. I'm going to have to explain a little bit about what's going on here today. First of all, this is my own family line. This is the Tanner line. So we're looking at information that's began to be accumulated clear back in the early 1900s, genealogically speaking. And there was a book written first in 1905 by a Reverend Tanner who lived in Wisconsin about the Tanner family of Rhode Island, including John Tanner. And it was republished in 1915. And so there's just been books around for well over 100 years of time that people have been looking at this particular family. Now, some of you out there may find yourselves in that same category, and you may see something that everybody just accepts. This is just the way it is. And so basically what we have to do here is look a little bit further and come up with some information. And one of the things that I have been doing now for many years is simply focusing on the information that's in the family tree and then correcting what I can find and bringing it up to some kind of reasonable standard. Okay, so this is my great-great-grandmother, great-great back in 6th generation grandmother. And if I switch to her screen, I can click on View My Relationship, and then I get the standard FamilySearch straight line back to John Tanner and his second wife, Lydia Stewart. John Tanner had a kind of an unfortunate life in the sense that his first 2 wives predeceased him. So he had one wife and she died, and then Lydia Stewart is presumed to have died also in childbirth. So there was time. It was a rough time for people, especially when you understand that back in this time period, there was what we call the germ theory of disease was not at all accepted by anyone. Hardly anybody believed that there were germs. And so it was for women having children, it was almost inevitable that they would get some kind of infection from childbirth. Okay, so here we have on the right-hand side here, you, Lydia Stewart. And let me just sign into Goldie May so we can get some basic information about this. I probably should log this page, which I'll do. And I want to start a new project. So let's start a new project with Lydia Stewart. The important thing I think about what happens here using Goldie May is that it keeps track of all of the websites that I click on. So I don't have to sit here and write those down every time I move on to a new website or copy the link and put it into a research log, because it's going to create a research log for me. So I'm going to just kind of get rid of some of the FamilySearch extra stuff here. Okay, so here it is. She was born on November 18th, 1783 in Albany, now Washington County, New York. And down here it says 18 November 1783, and down here she has Bolton, Warren, New York, United States. So we have 3 different counties on the same page. And the question is, which county was it to start out with? If you're wondering why I mentioned 100 years of research or action on this, is that if I go on FamilySearch and go to edit this, there are 15 people following this, and there are 146 past contributors to this person. Okay, so I would have to be taking the position that all 15 people and 146 past, one of them would be me, all other of the 14 other people, and the 145 past contributors, not including me, we're all wrong.
Right.
And the, so there's a little bit
Not
of
that they all had an explicit position on that birthplace, but no one else
no, but
changed it.
no
Yeah, no
one
one
else
else.
did it. Okay.
Yeah.
So what's the story here? Well, then let's look down here because there's a note and it says, please leave birth year of 1783 calculated from gravestone, previously removed birthplace of Bolton Warren, since it did not exist at the time of her birth. Her son William's death record gives her place of birth as Greenwich, New York. It did not exist at the time. So based on her father's residence of Easton, formed 1789, confirmed by the Nauvoo LDS Temple record, she would have been born in Albany County a few years later annexed into Washington County. The Treaty of Paris was signed before Lydia was born, and the Articles of Confederation were in effect. So the country should be listed as the United States. The question is, well, Warren is down here as the person. Now, this person, whoever did this particular contribution or the note, it acknowledges that Bolton didn't exist at the time of her birth. So why are we keeping it here as the place? That would be
so
the
someone
question.
changed it back and the note was still in place?
Well, we can look back here and see all of the different changes that occurred. And if you go through, you'll see there's a lot of people here, and I don't want to really read everybody's names. But this is all, anybody who gets in here can see this. In other words, if you're registered at FamilySearch, you can understand that this is a collaborative, open, wiki-based program. And if you make a change and you sign in and you do things, everything you do is going to be recorded by the program and available to anyone else out there. It's some people do kind of privacy by having a name that is not recognizable, some kind of a screen name. Those of us who are serious about doing genealogy put our complete names there and all of our contact information, hoping that somebody will contact us at some point in time. So that's kind of the attitude here. The question here is, there's a lot of other things. So here's under the live sketch is a lot of information, including the fact that she's buried in the Bolton Rural Cemetery. And her gravestone says, et cetera, and et cetera. Okay, so looking at Lydia Stewart, it's obvious that there's got to be some work done here. Now, if we look at her parents, and the simplest way to do this on the FamilySearch is to view her tree. So if you click and view her tree, it will put her in the middle of, and then you'll see her part of the family tree. And we see that we have a parents named William Stewart and a mother named Amy Hutton. And they had a bunch of children. And then you can add a new father and a new mother. This means that this is the end of the line. And this is one of the things that recently attracted my attention, because maybe it's a good idea to start looking at William Stewart again, because it's been a while.
You circle back to him every once in a while.
Yeah. So let's say, okay, we don't agree with that. Where do we think she really was born? And if we went back through Lydia and looked at what her sources were, and there's 23 sources listed here. So we have a find a grave, we have a mention in Utah Pioneers and Prominent Men of Utah. We have three references to her. And then a headstone image from Billion Graves. We have Bolton Cemetery records, Lydia Tanner burial, and Lydia Stewart, and then we go down. These are all children records. And so as we go down through here, here's all the children records.
Okay.
So you go down through all the children who are listed. So here's an entry for each of the children. And these people were people who joined the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints and went west as pioneers and ended up in Utah. So, and other places around. My direct line ancestors went to Arizona, and some of the other Tanners went to Canada and other places. And that's why there are so many people that have looked at this and so many people who have made changes. But let's kind of leave Lydia alone for the time being, because as it's going right now, even though Bolton, Warren County did not exist in 1783, according to that statement, what we do need to do is go to her father. So let's look at her father, and then I think what will happen when this gets completed at some point in time is we'll circle back and make all the changes. But until I can find a place for the father and the connections and all that kind of stuff to a birthplace and to all the other things. So let's look for the sources here. We have tax list in Saratoga, New York. We have United States Census record for William Stewart, and it's in Albany, New York in 1790, and Easton, Albany, New York in 1790. And so here's the question. Let's go through the process that I would always go through to start out. And that is to look at all the places. And so let's go to the subway map for him and see what happened. It's about as straightforward.
Why are we not just?
Did you not see it?
Well, you did. I'm just curious that it's showing Lydia down on the bottom right. At the bottom of the subway map, it says Lydia, but not William yet. So it's like it hasn't.
Okay, we got both of them now.
Picked him up yet, but it's because we're on
the sources
project. Yeah, and we're on a project for her.
For Lydia.
Yeah. So
okay, now we have William.
No, both. Yep.
I mean, it's about as clean as you're going to look. You're going to find.
Yeah, you're right. That's very clean.
Yep. And so the only thing that's out here for Lydia, which is the blue right now, is that she had some children that were actually born in Bolton, Warren County, New York, and listed there. And that's true because I'm going to just have to make this not go on for 3 or 4 hours. I'm just going to have to say, yes, documentation about John Tanner living in Bolton, New York is tremendously, it's where he lived.
Mm-hmm.
It's on Lake George, and I've actually visited the site of his home, which is no longer there. They built a new condominium complex there, but we're not worried. And all down here is Greenwich, Washington County, New York. And this is Easton, Washington County. Also and then we go back here to Easton. And now she's saying she was born in Bolton and got married in Bolton, probably got married there, may have been married there in that date, but we'll have to see. Okay. So now what we're going to do is, and there should be a little magic thing, is map places.
Mm-hmm.
So then we will go and see where all these places are. And I think it picked up Charlotte
I ended
County.
up kind of hitting the X on the first one, New York Colony, at the top left of the map, of the top left of the Google map. I just X out that one that it's not finding the British colony, America. Yeah. It just doesn't handle the historical places as well.
Okay. And Charlotte County, Florida is not there, but these 3 are. Okay. So this is actually the map. So now what we have is places mentioned here, Warren County. And if we zoom in on the map, we'll see that that's Bolton right here. Bolton is that town. And of interest, John Tanner actually owned all of this area, including that island.
Oh, interesting.
He was a very, very wealthy person and lost everything he had to go make across the country and being a pioneer. But he basically had already made a great deal of money before that. And as you come down, you'll see that along here, when we get down to this particular part, is where we run into, and this isn't as far as it actually looks, I'm scrolling like that, is we find Albany because that's listed as a place, that's the county. But when we go up here to some of the other locations, we'll see that there's different places. So what we need to put on here is Greenwich. And then that will give us. So the problem, what we're facing here on the subway map is that the information, as I pointed out with Lydia Stewart Tanner, is simply wrong. The time periods are wrong, the places are wrong. And so I think we're a little premature on determining where they are, what the sequence and everything is. the question that we're going to be doing is accumulating enough information to go back into the family search and basically make changes that are going to make some of the 100 plus people unhappy when we do that. And we will probably have to, meaning me, would probably have to make sure I got all the information direct and substantiated, and then put that information in there complete with all of the sources and all of the copies of everything. And then that would probably make most of the people happy. Not all of them, but it would make some of them happy, because they would still say, it's in the book. And I go, yeah, the book's wrong. So that's what it would. Actually, this is interesting because they do cite the Tanner book, and the Tanner book is not wrong in this case. It simply doesn't have the information. So everything else has been added.
I see.
Since the original books were written. Okay, so let's put the map aside for a while. The summary here would be that all of these places are close enough to each other, and during the time period involved and the time and the distances that some of these people were traveling and the settlements, they're all logical. It's not something you would rule out per se, just simply because these places are more than 6 miles apart or some distance apart.
It could work. Yeah.
Yeah, not only because work, that the documents that do support some of this are basically the ones that are helpful. Okay, so let's look at the one document that really helps us out of this list. And that document is down here, and it's the New York land record. And I can open that up, and it's on FamilySearch. And we'll see that this one is the 9th day of November in the year of our Lord, 1820, in Queen William Stewart in the town of Easton County of Washington and the state of New York, and Amy, his wife, the first part of John Herring and so forth. And then you have the rest of the language of the legal indenture. So what does this do? Well, it tells us there is a William Stewart who has a wife named Amy, and that's significant because without going into a search trying to see how many William Stewarts there are, just take my word that there are hundreds. And they're all over the place, and they have all different wives, obviously. And so the question here is that we at least have fastened down to a place, a time, and names. And so we have something to go on. So let's see when Easton, the counties that are right. If you want to know if that comes up, then you go to map of New York counties and can pick up a county map quite easily, blow it up. And so here's Washington County, here's Warren County, here's Saratoga County, and Albany down here. And Albany used to be this whole part of
Okay. Interesting.
At one point that was the original county, and so it was everything that were around here. So here are the counties. Saratoga County, there's a county that pops up in here called Charlotte County. And Charlotte County has ceased to exist. It was renamed Washington County.
Oh, that's why earlier Google Maps put it in Florida, because it's gone now.
Yeah, because Charlotte, there's no Charlotte County in New York. The only Charlotte County that they could find was in Florida. Okay, so that's kind of explanation of that. Now I realize I'm skipping over a lot of the individual kind of research things that have been done, but this is kind of bringing you up to speed with where we are today and what we need to look for and what records are missing. So this one record right here, the one I brought up, this indenture, is a crucial record. And if we look at the entire record here and go over to this is the end of this. When there are these records like this, by the way, in the original records, these have been copied over. These aren't the original ones they signed. These are the ones that were copied into the record book by the court.
Okay, I see.
So somebody had to sit down and write this whole thing. That's why it looks so perfect and why everybody's signature looks like they knew how to write and things like that. Because this isn't the actual document itself. It's a reliable document. And if we go to the next page, and go back up here, we find the last little bit of it, of when it was actually certified. And this is a certified to be a true record of the original deed. So we're working off a certified copy, which is fine. I mean, that's acceptable. There's no problem. The reason why this is important is because other than the grave markers, this is the only original document that exists in this whole family line from William Stewart.
So this is contemporary, and not much else
But
is.
what we have, though, are we have tax records and we have census records that show him. But they're the old census records before 1850. And so you have a bunch of tick marks, and you really haven't got any. You can reinforce some information by using the old tick mark census records, because if they say he has a wife and there's a tick mark, then you know he had a wife and a tick mark. But in trying to sort out the children, it gets to be really complicated, because the old records aren't precise enough to tell you who they are when they were born or when they disappeared.
Okay, that's good.
So basically what we want to know is when Easton was formed. And if you read a little bit of history, it was formed in 1789 from the towns of Saratoga and Stillwater. And it talks about the homestead, and it's on the National Register of Places. It's southwestern Washington County, New York, and it's along the county's western boundary. It's part of the Glen Falls Metropolitan Statistical Area, et cetera, and et cetera. So basically what we've got here is the fact that it was 1789, it was formed as a county. So then we look up here at when we go back to Stewart, and we look at the details of here, then we can see their marriage in 1780 in Bolton, Warren County, New York. And the date of the deed is 1820. So at some point in time, somebody believed that he and Amy Hutton got married in Bolton, Warren County, New York. Okay, so that would be the next one in line. So I'm just going to go to Easton and take that out and look up Bolton. So here's Bolton, New York, Wikipedia, Bolton in Warren County. And Bolton settlement began in 1792, and it was formed from part of the town of Thurman in 1799, and lost some of the territory and 329 other names of counties in that and so forth. That it actually was a town, identifiable town, in 1799. Quickly jumping back, they did not get married in 1780 in Bolton, Warren County. There you go.
Good problem right away. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So if you've been looking for a marriage certificate in Bolton, Warren County, or a marriage record, you just are not going to find it. It's not there. It's gone. We can't possibly have anything there. Okay, so we go down here, and everyone else in 1773, which, by the way, is 7 years before the marriage date of 1780, unless I can't add and subtract.
Right. Yeah, that put her marriage at age 7 or earlier. Yeah.
No, Amy's.
Are you saying?
I'm saying the marriage date here is 1780. The first baby,
the first child,
is born in 1773 in Easton.
Yep.
And then we go to John, and he's born in 1780, which is, possible. And then we have Lydia, who's born in 1783. All these people born in Bolton, Warren County, and Easton, and back and forth. So
yeah.
So the question, okay, so if we're going here and we want to, and just to give ourselves a little bit of perspective, is we go to Bolton, New York, and then we say directions to Easton, New York. And it's 46 miles away. That's not impossible, but you have to come to the conclusion, why were they moving back and forth? Why are we jumping between Bolton and between Easton? And where are the records? And so we look here at William and the sources, and we see that these census records are in Albany, which was the county, and Easton in the county. So next we want to know, when was Albany County made? Let's leave that up for the time being. But let's go to Albany. Okay. Albany County, New York. Albany County was the original county back in 1683. And at that time, it had everything. And if you want to see what happened to it, you go to the Atlas of Historical County Boundaries, which is the record from the Newberry Library, Albany. And you can see how many times it's changed. That's because it was the original non-county area in New York, and it wasn't even defined.
Oh, interesting.
And so all of the counties in the northern part of New York came from it. And if you go down through here, you'll see that to Saratoga County, here's Washington. It lost to Washington in the creation of Rensselaer and Saratoga. And so here's all the different counties. Albany lost to all the other ones. So as you go down through here, you'll see that it lost territory when Vermont declared its independence. So, it included all of Vermont.
It was huge.
So that begins the problem. So the real question is, when was Washington County formed? And then we find out it was formed in 1772. Charlotte county was created, and Charlotte was the name, and it wasn't a new county. It was just, name was changed from Charlotte County to Washington County. Renamed Washington in 1784. So anything here that says Washington County before 1784 could not have been Washington County either. So that's a question. So keep in mind the 1784, that's Charlotte, say, that's correct.
All right. Okay.
There's Charlotte, 1780. Here's 1783, but see, that's Bolton. That's clear up the way. And then Easton in 1785 in Washington is correct because it was 1784. So any kind of discrepancy down here is taken care of, except we have Lydia born in Bolton, and we have none of the other children born in Bolton.
And Lydia is your ancestor.
Yep.
Okay.
That's the one where we started with.
Yeah.
Okay. So let's I think we're probably need to kind of wrap this up a little bit. So where are we going from here? The next step in this process, which isn't complete, by the way, one of the things that I would be doing and have been doing now for the last little while is going back through and looking at every one of the sources carefully, and then trying to find additional sources. And the target source, after doing all this and figuring out the places, is to find William Stewart's probate record. Now, here's the one key thing that happened with this. He's buried in the Botskill Baptist Church Cemetery in Greenwich, Charlotte, New York. Why is that important in the world? Well, the reason why it's important is that if you go to Lydia and Lydia's husband, John Tanner, who's the John Tanner, he was born in Rhode Island. And as you go back through all these records, and the one key record that I found was the Botskill Baptist Church Cemetery records, where the tombstones had been transcription had been done. And we find one of the children of John and Lydia buried in that cemetery.
Not one.
So in Botskill Baptist Church Cemetery.
Wow.
And that's in Greenwich, Charlotte County at the time, but it's New York.
Okay,
so
interesting.
So what we have now is we have enough information from the cemetery records and from that one deed, that indenture, and the census records and the other things, that we have now collapsed this whole thing into a focus. And now we have, if we look for records in Charlotte and subsequent name Washington County, the big record we want to find is William Stewart's probate record.
Yeah, that would open up a lot of doors, open up a lot of.
And so basically, it may tell us nothing, but considering the fact that there's a deed in there, there was property. And if there's a probate record. And if there's a probate record, we may very well find a will. And if we find a will, we'll find a list of who his children were really. And then we can work from there to trying to find. But right now, at the status of the information that's here in the family tree, it's too much of a mess. Until it's cleaned up, there is no way in the world we can go look for William's parents.
So, James, here's kind of a side question, which is, how do you take care of remembering these details before you get it into the family search tree? I think, like, I use the family search tree as my main tree. I think you do too. But before you kind of get that base of evidence to make the change,
there's two ways. First of all, I think if I go to the research log, I should have turned on automatic logging, which I did not. Yeah. Too bad. But I can log this page, and then I can start going back through. For instance, I could go here and log this page, and then I could go, So it's going to be pretty simple for me to go back and compile that list of people, of places. But what I try to do is create a narrative along with the research log, and I could add comments here and do that. And with the medium, in other words, where I put this information to me is somewhat arbitrary. But on the other hand, the convenience of being able to do what I just did and click and get that address is big to me.
Yeah. Okay. Good.
It really is an important thing.
Pre-Goldie May, this might have been on paper. You're just keeping some notes about this before you get it into the tree.
Yeah, well, even now I will start to do my conclusions. And basically, the reason why I do that is because I am writing what I am going to put in as the support for all the changes that I make to all these people.
Yeah.
So this is going to go in as a document that says, here's my reasoning and here's all the documents. And so I'm writing my research report, if you would, my supporting document as I go along.
Cool. Okay.
So that's really the end of it. And, next steps, and that's where we would go. But you can see that questioning everything is important, and making sure that every of one of the sources is consistent and supports the issues, and making sure you don't just copy over names and dates and places because they happen to be in the family tree.
Yeah. I feel that tension about, your ancestor has this really nice bio sketch at the top of her family search profile. And I always feel the tension of, like these has all these facts, but they don't have sources necessarily when they're in that sketch. And so I feel that tension of like, well, I don't really want to edit it, but I may need to at some point when we discover the real facts.
Well, yeah, but we're source supported, so we need to support it by the sources. If there's no source, that's just imagination. So we're just going to be there. But you can see that some of this has been, and the breakthrough for me was finding this document. Let me just get to that document. It's this memory document right here. This was there we go. This is two different pieces of two different records. But this is the transcription from the grave markers, from the tombstones, gravestones. William Stewart died August 5th, 1826. And this is from the Botts Kill, which is part of Greenwich Baptist Church records. And then here's one of the children, Sidney, a son of William and Amy, who died on that date at 10 months and 14 days. So this puts them physically in and members of that Botskill Baptist Church. And what I began to find is there's lots of stuff about that church. It's still going.
Wow.
And so it is, it's a major kind of thing. And then what was even more important from this particular point was there's also a child of John Tanner and Lydia Tanner buried in that same cemetery.
Okay.
So not only do we have confirmation that we have the right person, we have confirmation that we have the connection between John Tanner and Lydia Stewart, and we have the right Stewart, probably.
Very cool.
Or a very high recommendation here. But
Yeah.
we don't have the records, and now we need to go get all the records. That's it.
Good. All right. Well, thank you, James.